My wife's going to be in it this time too.
Okay.
Right? Right? No? Oh. Oh, okay. I thought you wanted to be in it.
Was she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. I gotta make sure I. Yeah, that's gonna sound funny.
Please.
Do you want to be in?
I think I'll probably just watch it on YouTube.
You can take my spot if you want.
No, I'm good.
I'm not.
We're gonna put it. We're not gonna put it on
Just need somebody
YouTube.
that's gonna like. Ask
We're gonna put it on Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Bluetooth. You want to have it on
Put
Bluetooth?
it on
BooTube? I don't know what BooTube is.
YouTube. You guys ever heard this term, the Jew World Order?
No.
Is there like something like
This
that?
is my first time.
Can't see your head, Amanda.
Oh.
It's okay. It's bold, anyways.
Yeah, I know. It's just gonna get the glare and. How about now? Is it better?
There we go.
Okay. Okay, are we ready?
So we meet again.
Yes, we do. Week later. And as I'm looking at my notes here, the last thing we talked about is I described the end and my wife driving away and never seeing her again. So now, let me just tell you how, from this point on, what starts to evolve. First thing, of course, I'm in an utter state of shock that I can't even describe in words. But I think the first thing that I was motivated to do was to try to contact her friends. And she had quite a few friends in town. I just started calling around. I said, do you know this just happened? This is happening. Well, you're kidding. And they were just all shocked. And I said, well, have you heard from her? Have you tried to call her? And bottom line was that none of these women ever heard from her ever again. And when any of them did try to call her, she never answered. And in fact, shortly after she left, she canceled her cell phone. So nobody, even her friends, and then the reason I bring this up is because, first thing everybody was largely thinking was like, okay, Carlton, what did you do? Okay, a wife doesn't just leave like that unless there was something horrific about you and your husband and whatnot. And when they finally started connecting those dots, I said, wait a minute, you're right, that wouldn't happen. She wouldn't just cut off everybody. If you were the problem, okay, then you're the problem, but all these other friends that she had would not also be just summarily cut off. In fact, one of the things I remember, in fact, it was the morning she left, she had, and I saw this, she walked over the phone and called her employer. She had this part-time job, and she just called her and said, yeah, this is Megan, and I'm not coming in, and I'm not ever coming in. Bye. Click. Again, just another piece of evidence that I knew I was dealing with a horrific
Is
situation.
that before the breakup or after the?
Well, that was just minutes before she got in the car. Or
Oh.
actually, I should say minutes before I went
So
to
that's
the dog walk, and then when I came back, she was in the car. So, yeah, I mean, literally, the point is that every single contact she had, she cut off. And there was one gal in particular, I mentioned her before, I think, that was just an adorable Christian woman. She just adored my wife and just clearly saw her as her best friend. And of course, I contacted her right away, and she did the best she could to try to reach Megan, and then even tried to reach. Like, I don't even know if I have this as a note, but she contacted or tried to reach Megan's parents, and when she did actually get my mother-in-law to answer the phone, and she told me that she said, what happened to Megan? Where is she? I need to know where she is. I need to contact her. And she just said, listen, you just need to know one thing. Megan is with the people now that she needs to be with. And mind you, this is a friend. I mean, she's got nothing to do with me other than I know who she is. But the point is to see that everyone now is essentially an arch enemy in Megan's history. So that's just something I want to make sure you understood. So I don't know how many weeks after, it wasn't that many weeks later, I eventually get a letter in a mail from an attorney that my wife had hired. And so that's when I knew that everything was truly in a state of collapse here. And basically, it was, and this letter was extremely bizarre in that, I mean, literally, this guy on her behalf wrote out every single item of personal property, right down practically to paper clips that she wanted. I have this thing, and I want that, and I have this, and I want that. And so it was shocking to see such trivia declared like, this is mine, and I better get it. And even worse, to see that there would be some stooge attorney that would have even written something like this up. I mean, that was shocking to me right there. And in fact, it's from there, well, I kind of jumped ahead of something here on my notes. I eventually did, in fact, it was from Megan's best friend. She said, listen, I know somebody, or we know somebody who's a Christian attorney in town. You probably should go talk with him. And so I did. I retained him for, just the purpose of basically getting some advice. And the bottom line, real simple, is that this guy, a so-called Christian, he did nothing more than say, okay, how much are you worth? And if you own that house, the first thing I want you doing, I want you selling that right now. I mean, this is the first thing this guy's telling me, is liquidate everything you have. And I said, look, I'm not here to have you tell me to liquidate anything. Okay, I'm trying to find out what happened to my wife. At this point, I knew something that was horrific. I hadn't started using cult terms yet, but I knew something terrible had happened. I said, I'm here trying to ask you, what can you do to stop this onslaught that's happening here? And I gave him basically the short scenario that I knew it as at that time, that she's just gone. Nobody's been able to contact her. It meant nothing to him. He just said, look, I could care less. She's gone. Get over it, Jack. Now get that stuff up and sold. And I said, okay, have a nice day. And I left. Well, for whatever reason, the guy did send some kind of a communication to Megan's attorney. And
Even when you said you would not hire him?
no, I had to give him a $1,000 retainer for him to even sit down in front of me.
Really?
Oh yeah, you can't. No attorney will. I mean, maybe our brother would, but 99.999% of them wouldn't even give you the time of day.
Okay.
And so that's how it worked. And so I just met with him this, relatively speaking, short period of time. It was one of the, oh my gosh, every day is dark, but I mean, there's no question that probably was the darkest day ever.
So you said that her friend suggested this?
Yeah, it was, and her and her husband are Christians, and I don't know how they knew this guy.
Okay, so what happened? What were you saying about he sent what to her lawyer?
He sent a communication letter saying, okay, listen, I have this guy. You've retained Margaret Bryant in this divorce action, and now I've been retained by her husband. And this is what he apparently said. He sent a letter saying, listen, the one thing I know is that there's something, this is not your typical bad marriage. There's something completely different going on here. And it looks as if like this woman's either lost her mind, or I don't know. I didn't actually see his write-up, but I could tell, and there's a reason I could tell, is I get a subsequent communication from this wicked attorney Stuber. And I just wanted you to know that why this letter came. I forgot to insert this in here. So anyway, this attorney I'd retained for the short period of time had sent this letter, and I don't know, a week or so later, get another letter from this attorney Stuber, my wife's attorney, and wow, I'll tell you, there was nothing that, I mean, if there was ever a point I said this is demonic, it was when I read this letter. Because this guy, and mind you, I don't know him from Adam. He doesn't know me, or at least, right? I mean, that's the idea. He is writing a letter that is dripping with hatred. Like, he knows me. He has known me all my life. I'm going to get you. I am going to absolutely finish you. Your days on this planet are over. Now, I mean, I'm not saying he literally used that language, but I mean, he sent this message. And now, mind you, attorneys are supposed to be just impartial agents, okay? Mm-hmm. He doesn't even know me. He knows nothing about me. And I'm reading this letter that's saying, I exist on this planet to take you down. And that's literally the feeling I got. I mean, I was really shaken by this, because, I mean, I said, every single thing that's happening is just not even within the realm you could say, okay, that would be normal in a bad circumstance like this. Every single thing is outside of what could be construed as normal. Not that I have any experience in it, but I mean, I understand that attorneys are supposed to just talk between themselves. First of all, that was the first thing I could see, is that this is a massive breach of protocol. His job is not to communicate with me whatsoever, other than that first, what do they call it, basically a notice letter. That I've been retained and you're the subject of it. At that point, I mean, I'm not supposed to ever hear from this guy whatsoever. I mean, I've actually, at this moment in time, got a retained attorney, and he's going, I don't care who you got, I'm going to send you this letter and I'm going to send you this message and I'm coming after you. And
For the house, is what you want.
Oh, no,
Everything.
this was much bigger than that. I guess I'll just spell it out. This had a sense, as I'm reading this, that, as I said, like this guy has known me from the day I drew my first breath, and his job was to cut me down at whatever point in time in my life he got the opportunity to do it. I guess what I'm trying to say is there was a clear element of the demonic here, that he was not speaking to me like a human being. He was speaking to me like the kingdom of hell was speaking through him and saying, we've been looking for this day and we're going to get you.
And so you were saying about the other lawyer that you retained. Did he give you that advice after you received this letter or before?
No. After that first meeting, I realized this guy was not only worthless. I mean, I got to be honest. I just said, "Well, you're just evil." I mean, the fact that I just walk in there and this guy says the first thing. It was even worse than that. And the guy was even saying, "Listen," he said, "Carlton, it doesn't. This is going to happen.
Yeah.
This judge is going to do this to you, and this is going to happen, and the police are going to." And I wasn't even making any declarations. I was just saying, can you stop this? I don't know what's happened to my wife. I mean, mind you, I'm not even thinking of my house. I'm not thinking of my stuff. I'm not thinking of my railroad shine. I'm not thinking anything other than my wife has been hauled off. I mean, at this point, I've got this sense. Has been hauled off by some power, and I'm just petrified that she's gone. I can't get her. I can't get back to her. And this guy could care less. He just said, I don't care what, listen, Jack, you're here because you got wealth and I'm going to get some of it.
Right, yeah.
And that's why he basically tried to grease the skids up as quick as he could to get my wealth liquidated into a cash position so he could go in there and go, I'm going to get a chunk, which is basically what lawyers do. I mean, that's what they exist to do.
Yeah. So you don't think anything he did was like set up, like that your wife's friend suggesting him to you?
No. He just look. It'll be some other day where we can talk about this. But I mean, believe me, I've had so much time to think about so many things. One of the things I've thought about is the nature of lawyerdom. I mean, I understand it. I get it.
Yeah.
It's not. It does not exist to help us.
Right,
It's basically an extortion racket and a title of nobility that Christians should know never ever should have been placed over it. But anyway, that's a tangent. At this point, okay, so I should say that I had fired that attorney. I just said, look, you're done. You're obviously you're basically treating me like I'm your enemy, or certainly not like you're there to help me as my agent. That was as obvious as I'll get out. And to my pleas of what can we do to stop this? Is there anything to stop this? And by the way, you need to archive this point I'm saying right now. I'm asking him, is there anything we can do under law to stop this? And he went, nope, shut up, move. And I took him at his word. Okay, he's a barred attorney. He would know this, right? Okay, so we'll get back to that later. Okay, so after this, out of the blue, I eventually get a phone call from Jeff Krupp. Now, mind you, he had been told not to contact anybody, not to, he's told to be separated, but somehow he heard what had happened. And at this point, it didn't even matter to me that he called. Obviously, I'm just home alone now. And he was very kind, extremely kind. And it just for some reason, when I heard him, and heard his voice, and he said, I'm really sorry to hear about this. This is just compounding what's happened at my end. And he just basically just calling to say, I'm very, very sorry that this happened. I said, well, thank you for calling, and I appreciate your kindness and your words. And so even though we hung up, eventually I said, I'm going to contact him again because I really got to get at the bottom of this. I got to find out what does he know. You know, I'm at this point, I'm smelling a rat here, that all this claim about all the evils, even though, again, I know what his open confession in court meant, but I still smelled something wrong. It didn't add up. What I knew of him, what little I knew of him, just didn't add up. And I said, you know, do you mind if we could meet and we can talk? He said, hey, I'd love to. Thanks so much. When do you want to do it? So I said, let's meet at the Starbucks there at Fred Meyer in Albany. And so we started getting together. And basically, I mean, instantly I'm just pumping him for every kind of information I could. I could talk for hours and hours about the time he and I spent. In fact, literally, I would say for months, maybe even 6 months, we met for coffee at Starbucks almost every single day. And I don't mean for like 10 minutes. I mean, we'd be like several hours minimum. And strangely, he didn't really have any questions for me. I mean, if he did, it was just a fraction of what I was trying to glean from him, because I'm trying to backfill. Okay, what is your why? What do you know? That was a big chunk of time here. So this is just the point. I just decided to tell you this, but I mean, it was for many months. Would be basically throughout, well, the greater part of 2007. He and I are contacting. He's also got an attorney. I think I mentioned that earlier, and he's at his end trying to undo, the horror on his end. I basically figured out long after the fact that the attorney he hired had figured out that he was dealing with somebody who was basically, in the legal sense, incompetent, who was not competent to plea anything in a court of law. And so this confession that he's thinking of murdering his family and his children, all this, they just said, wait a minute, this is nonsense. Well, the lawyer tried, and unfortunately, Jeff, apparently he used me as a cue, although I don't think it's the same application at all. I think it was a bad action, bad mistake, but he fired his attorney. And he said, I'm just going to fire my attorney. He's not doing anything for me. At least he couldn't see it. And I didn't see it instantly, but I did eventually see what the guy was trying to do. He was trying to get, he'd made Jeff go to some counselors and psychiatrists, and he was trying to obviously build a profile that, this guy is basically incompetent, and that he could take it back to that court and say, that confession is nothing. Right. The problem isn't the confession. The problem is he's basically an incompetent man. And it just never happened. And so anyway, this is, so Jeff and I are now connected, and I'm just getting gigantic quantities of downloading. So some of the stuff is just horrific. But believe me, it didn't take long for me to realize, okay, not only is this Fatima not what I took her to be, but that this was a very evil, wicked woman. And then it only got worse as time passed.
Did he have info on what actually happened to your wife, or no?
No, he knew they were both. I'm not even sure how he knew it. The guy was pretty sharp on data acquisition, that's for sure. And he knew they were up in Beaverton. In fact, at one point, and I think it was around the summer of '07, he said, I think I know where they're at. And I go, you do? And he said, yeah, I'm gonna drive up there tomorrow, and I'm gonna, he had a motorcycle, and he said, I'm gonna go up there and see if I can find him. I'm thinking, I don't know why you would even think this. Well, sure enough, he found them. And I have no idea, but he found the apartment complex they were living in. My wife still had her new Beetle, the custom license.
She was living with Fatima?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what I said. I mean, if anything to understand, this Fatima had become, the demonic god to my wife. That I knew. That at some point I finally figured this out, that she was basically a Jim Jones cult figure. I don't know if you know Jim Jones. Sorry. Oh, you do? Yeah. Okay. But that she basically said, okay, you're God, and I'm going to follow and worship you. And I definitely got that sense. And I even think that Jeff, even to the extent he could understand it, was sensing this himself. Okay, so, when I met Jeff and we were getting all this downloading, truly I was, getting just Boku data that their marriage was just a dysfunctional mess. And I don't even mean in the typical sense of dysfunctional as you commonly hear it. I mean that once I saw that he was, very, well, however you want to call it, mentally maldeveloped as a man and a husband, the things he started telling me were just a horrific dysfunctionality. Just couple that with the fact of who this woman was, it was just horrible. And I'll just leave it at that. So eventually, it was about, I don't know, I think it was in May of '07. I eventually get a knock on the door. Are you Carlton Bryant? Boom, you're served. And now I'm in it. Now my wife had really done this, and this thing's filed. And now I am hitting my knees like never before. And I'm going, Lord, what do I do? Everything is collapsing beyond my worst nightmare here. And now I've got this piece of paper, or this stack of paper from this so-called court claiming jurisdiction over me and my marriage. What do I do? And the Lord did answer my prayer. 2-word answer, I'll never forget it. He said, do nothing. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, of course, do nothing. Because to do anything other than that would be to grant jurisdiction to the state to do whatever it decides it thinks is right regarding me, my status as a husband and a provider and husband over my estate. And so that decision was made. And so there's a 30-day window, and once you're served, you get a 30-day window. And
What do you need to do exactly?
well, they basically say you've been served. We're
With
now
divorce papers?
Yeah, they're divorce
Okay.
papers. They're the most farcical. The most farcical legal concept ever. Usually, when you see legal papers, it'll say you're either talking about either a criminal action, in other words, somebody physically injured somebody, an act of violence of some kind, or a breach of contract, an injury that's what they call civil injury. Well, they just call this is the matter of. That's how they title it. In the matter of Carlton Bryant versus Margaret Bryant, like matter, that's not a cause. You're just basically saying, well, we the state are now claiming jurisdiction over these people, the sum of them, because one has approached us. And so, believing and following the Lord's command, I did nothing. And the 30 days expired, and I mean, you got to understand, even though I know a lot more now about the legal process and the limitations of courts, judges, or at least I should say the legal limitations, okay, got to qualify that, of what they can and can't do. I didn't know that then. I was completely ignorant. Let's just say at that point, for all intents and purposes, I was completely ignorant of these things. So I let the 30 days expire, and I just do not know what's going to happen. I don't know if the day after the 30th day, there's going to be a troop of squad cars out there with their guns drawn and saying, you're grabbing me by the throat and saying, you're gone. I literally didn't know if that could have been happening. And I literally every day kept thinking, well, this is a possibility that today this will happen. Well, the petition of the 30 days expire. And I should say this. At one point, I finally did look at it. And in this petition, first of all, the first thing my wife does is declare the value of everything we own, and including, or at least what she thought was the value of my railroad collection. She stated $100,000, which was way low. But the point is, I mean, she just said, hey, there's $100,000 sitting in Carlton's office closet. So anybody who could get that, you're a pretty rich dude just if you grab it, okay? Well, mind you, of course, the Benton County Sheriff's Office gets this and their eyes go, whoa. You might as well just say there's gold bricks in there. But she declared all of the value and things. However, the petition said everything shall be divided in half.
Right.
Well, that is, of course, according to state law, and
Okay.
under Chapter 107 of Oregon statute. I mean, that's an absolute given. In fact, it even says to any judge that under every single circumstance, there is no exception to this rule. You cannot divide anything other than half. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm following the Lord's instruction, do nothing, and I did see this, and I'm thinking, well, how are they going to do that if I don't consent? So if I don't walk into their jurisdiction, I don't grant them jurisdiction, it looked to me, I'm just scratching my head thinking, they've got a big problem here. Well, 1 month turn to the next, I'm not hearing anything. I'm not hearing anything from anybody. I'm still on pins and needles, just because I'm not hearing it doesn't mean that one day, half a dozen Crown Victorias from the sheriff's office aren't going to show up. But I did see that they would have a very, very big problem here without me consenting and going along with their plan or their claim. I believe it was at least 3 months after the expiration date of the service. I'm just throwing my arms up in the air. I'm thinking, well, does this stop it, Lord? Is this what happened? Is this at the end of this? Because I didn't grant them jurisdiction? Well, eventually in the late summer, I believe, I get another knock on the door. Same server, and the guy goes, and I see him, and
Did you answer?
Yeah, I didn't see him walk up. I just heard him knock on the door, and I'm not thinking I'd get serving. There is no serving again. I've already been served.
Right.
Well, he goes, and he hands to me, that as soon as I see him, he goes, I don't know why, but the judge says they're going to do it this way. And he just hands it to me and walks away. And I'm thinking, what? I'm thinking, what did you just say? I mean, he was basically saying, I don't know of any, why this is legal. I've been doing process serving for who knows how many years. And I'm giving you another service on the very same act. Mind you, when that thing expires after 30 days, I mean, they're bound by the terms of what they claimed. I mean,
Yeah.
they said, we want this. And so they would call that a default, which means, at least ostensibly, they would have a judgment in their favor. They get exactly what they wanted in that original petition. Well, they basically said, Judge, we want you to pretend that petition was never served and let us serve another one. That is when I knew right away, like, oh my goodness, I am really dealing with lawless court here. I mean, this is a kangaroo action on its face. And then I read it. And then it says, we want the Benton County Court to grant this divorce and give every single piece of property to the petitioner. There is
Upon what basis
There
can
it
they
was.
do
Well,
this?
we'll get there.
Wow.
It's not today.
Okay.
But yeah, on its face, you just me telling you that, you're going, okay, that's a criminal claim. There's no such thing. You could never. There's no evil state in the union that would ever say, oh yeah, you get to do that. So that's what I'm saying. You start thinking in terms of the demonic here and demonic players and demonic agents. You start connecting dots, saying, wait a minute, this person knows this person knows this person. I mean, they're all working in concert here. So anyway, the point being is that I get this second petition, which is basically saying the first one we serve you doesn't exist. It just pretend it never happened. And of course, I took it to mean that I'm thinking there is no way the attorney can pull us off. This is a lawless petition on its face. I concluded, therefore, that he was simply trying to scare me into entering jurisdiction. I knew they wanted me to get down to that courthouse and say, okay, I'm showing up. I'm now your subject. I'm granting you jurisdiction to do whatever you think it needs to be done. Well, again, I never did that. And by the way, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Okay, so I did, I did, as I said, I got served again, and this time I get a letter in the mail, and this was the letter in an unsealed envelope, literally unsealed, with just a piece of paper shoved in there saying, we, the Benton County Court, hereby rule against you. That was it. That's what it stated. And now it's like, okay, what are you going to do? I mean, I still haven't consented. I mean, I know this petition was lawless, and you're saying you're ruling in favor of the petitioner. I didn't know what was going to happen, so. Okay, so there's something else I wanted to interject here. So I know that supposedly the judgments have been entered against me, although I don't understand how they could possibly do anything. It seemed like a paper tiger declaration. But I don't know any of the governing statutes in terms of, well, if there was a judgment, how much time do you have? I didn't know. I assumed maybe 30 days, maybe 90. I didn't know. I was literally just flying blind. But I will tell you this, and I wrote this down. One day I came home from work, and I see a FedEx envelope on the porch. Now that's strange, a FedEx envelope. And I open it up, and it's from Bank of America up in Beaverton. And I open it up, and there's a cashier's check in it, and just a note someone scribbled. This is the balance of your checking account, ordered, cashed out to you by the co-owner, which would be my wife. In other words, we still had a joint checking account. I mean, I never just went right down to the bank and said, remove her from it, cancel, I want to get my own checking account. It didn't even dawn on me to even think like that. I wouldn't do it. I would never have done that. It wasn't going to even go there. Well, somehow she found out, and she, in her insanity, decided that, oh no, I can't let Carlton have that checking account with my name on it. No, but she couldn't do anything about it. And so she ordered it, because she had authority to do it with money. She still had the authority to go into that checking account and do whatever she wanted. She ordered them to cash it out and then FedEx me the cashier's check for it. Again, I guess you'd have to be there, but I knew this was just an act of staggering insanity. Staggering. I also thought it was just breathtaking that anybody at any bank would have done that. That it was said, listen, you got a problem with your husband, or we're not here to cash out your checking account, which you're a co-signer on, and then do things like FedEx envelopes with a cashier's check because you don't like the idea that his name's still on it. But again, there's nothing not insane about what's going on here.
And where were you working at this time?
I was still at HP. I had gone back to HP, and I was working as a contractor there.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, this is in the fall of '07. Okay, so I don't know how much longer after that, but I eventually, as I was driving up, and it was just by pure chance, I just glanced up, because when I came into the house, I had a remote garage door opener, and I always just, drive my car in and go into the house from the garage. And I never went in through the front door. Rarely did I do that, actually. But I somehow, just as I was pulling up, saw something on the door, and it was a red placard nailed to it. Benton County Sheriff's Office orders you've got 3 days, 72 hours from the time this thing's posted at 12:16 p.m. or whatever, to be vacated. This house is not yours. You're now to be considered, even at that time, trespassing on private property. And so the same thing. What do I do? Do I grab mind you? We now have a so-called judgment against me that said you don't own anything now. In fact, literally, that would even mean the clothes on my body. Like everything that is in that house is now Margaret Bryant's. And so all I could do is just continue to ignore it. And in fact, I should even say that I remember one guy from the Calvary Chapel Church called up, and he was a guy who kept short tabs on what was happening. And he says, and I told him the latest thing. He says, do you think they're going to come? Do you think they're going to do this? This is my honest opinion. Naive, perhaps, certainly, especially in light of hindsight. But I honestly thought, well, there's no way the sheriff's office is going to do this. That would be just so nakedly, not just nakedly criminal. You'd be talking about nakedly evil. And I just said, there's just no way I could see that. Well, 3 days later, after that thing got nailed, I went to bed that night, and 1:30 a.m. almost giving me a heart attack. I hear pounding on my door and screaming men saying, Benton County Sheriff's Office, open this door right now. And I could tell they weren't kidding. Now, mind you, I'm dead asleep. I come bolting out of my bed, just like scared to all what. And to the extent I could even say I was even thinking, I'm just thinking, what do I do? I'm thinking, well, I don't care. Let's just find out what's going on. And so, it's strange I should even say this, the front door to the house, on the inside, instead of just having a handle for, like the deadbolt, you lock it from the inside, for whatever reason, the original owner didn't have a deadbolt, he had a key slot. So in other words, just like on the outside, you had to have a key to open the deadbolt, same thing from the inside. So you had to have a key, and I left my keys in my truck. And so they're screaming, and I mean, they're clearly just trying to intimidate all get out from me. And it was working. I mean, my heart was going 1,000 miles an hour at this point. But I realized, okay, I got to go get the key. And so I'm walking around. I'm walking through the front family room, which they could see because they could turn from the front and see it from the side door and see me walking into the garage. Which, strangely, you would think they had every gun drawn. They're thinking,
Right.
For whatever reason, they didn't. And maybe that's even evidence right there. So I went and got the keys. I walked back. My eyes aren't even focusing. Get to the front. I mean, no sooner to get that thing unbolted, boom. I mean, they came in and they bum rushed me.
They put handcuffs on you?
Oh, right away. Right away. And I'm sitting there. I'm just in my underwear. Okay. I mean, and I can just, so much of this is a blur, but I do remember the ranking officer, who was a sergeant. This guy, man, he looked like and I don't think, this isn't even conjecture, I could tell this guy wanted to kill me. He wanted me dead. And he was just seething angry. And I'm now sitting on my couch. I don't even know why I did it, but I realized I'd left my clothing. By the way, I was sleeping on the couch because I didn't even want to sleep in my bedroom, so I'm sleeping on the couch. And I had my clothes just there on the floor from where I left them when I went to bed. And so I'm just trying to get my bearings. I'm trying to put them on. Now, I should say, they didn't instantly slap cuffs on me. No, that's not what happened. But I did put myself down on the couch, and this guy is basically just screaming bloody murder at me. And he is, he's basically saying, who do you think you are to defy the powers of me and the court? And he just goes through everything. And I can't even remember all he said, but I do remember the gist. He said those words. How dare you think you defy us? And I said, you are trespassing. This house belongs to me and my wife. And I mean, literally, I thought he was going to lunge at me. I literally thought he did. And the guy he came in with, I could see, stepped in between and realized, man, if he didn't get me out of there, that he didn't know what was going to happen, that this guy was so furious. And when I said that, as he's kind of like lunging, he says, you, and then he just stops, and it was just like something just zipped his lips and said, you're not going to speak another word, Jack. And I think we have a visitor here. Hello. Do you want to check on who that is?
Hey, Dan, could you go with him? Just in case.
So anyway, it was a very, very powerful moment in that it was amazing when I spoke that truth, that he shut his mouth. It was like, an archangel came down and just sewed it up, and he couldn't say anything. And when he finally realized he couldn't say anything, he turned to the guy who basically jumped in between he and me, said, get him out of here, cuff him and get him out of here now. And so they grabbed me, and the other guy is not being uncivil. I'm not calling him a Boy Scout. He's all part of this evil, and he knew what he was doing, but he certainly wasn't there to put a bullet into my head. And he marches me out my front door, and he says, okay, now I need to cuff you. And so he cuffs me behind, hands behind my back, and walks me out to the front of the house, and my jaw hit the ground when I think like it. This is just what I could see. There were Benton County Sheriff's cruisers all over the place, and there are deputies milling about all over my property. And I didn't connect the dots at that time. But I do remember playing that video in my head, but I could see them. They're doing this, they're looking at their watch, they're going, get him out of here, get him out of here, we've got only so much time.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, I think you can get the implication of that.
What does that mean?
They were there to loot the house.
Oh.
Yeah, we're jumping ahead here, but
Wow.
yeah, no, I didn't know that. I'm being steamrollered here. I mean, I'm just in a state of shock where my brain is basically just shut down. But I did see things, and I did process it. Remember, that divorce petition said, here's all the wealth, and this is where it's at. And so they would have that data. So anyway, let me get back onto my bullet points here. So at this point, I'm being arrested. I'm put in the back of a cruiser, and this young guy, and he was probably the youngest deputy there. I guess the most junior guy, have him do the deed, while the other guys rake up all the wealth. And so he's got me cuffed, and this is like 2 a.m. Of course, nobody's seeing any of this. This is, dark 30. My neighbors are all sound asleep, and they're not making any noise. They're making sure they're very quiet. And I get hauled away, and I'm in this car, and I'm being taken from my home and everything I ever owned, and I'm in cuffs, and these guys are going to put me in a jail cell. And strange, I just remember the guy going, it was a semi-rural location. I mean, he was literally, he had that cruiser up to 100 miles an hour. I mean, he even turned back to me and says, "Are you comfortable?" And I said, "No." I said, "These things are cutting into my wrists." And I was really uncomfortable. I mean, I could barely even fit in the back seat. He says, "I'm going as fast as I can." And that's the only thing he ever said to me. And he eventually gets me to the sheriff's, rampart. It's a cement construct that looks like it's, there to withstand any siege that the rebels might ever think of mounting against it. I get brought in there, get processed, printed, all that, frisked, printed, photographed, and then get marched over to the processing desk. And these guys all know who I am. They know, it's like, oh, this is the guy. This is the guy, huh? This is the guy who wouldn't bow the knee to us. Okay, well, isn't this interesting? Now who's in charge? And the guy says, "Okay, sign here. This is just to say we're letting you go now." And I wasn't even mentally processing any of this, but I remember him saying, "Okay, your arraignment date's like 3 weeks from now." I said, "Stop." I said, "Baloney. I want to see a judge right now. I want to see a magistrate as soon as possible." He goes, "Okay, fine." He goes, scratches out. He goes, "You'll see the very judge that did this to you tomorrow at 10 a.m. And he just thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And but the point was, I did not want to delay an arraignment whatsoever. And so...
Now, this head sheriff was a man or a woman?
Oh, they were men. They weren't head. I mean, they were just, I don't even know what their ranks were.
Yeah.
Probably, sergeant, whatever. They weren't even lieutenants. They weren't high ranking. They were just, midnight operatives, I guess, of the system. And so anyway, I signed this thing. He gives me the copy of it, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be marched into a jail cell. He grabs me, puts me through this door, and before I even know what's happening, he shoves me out this door, and it's outside. And he pulls that door closed before I could even say, "Hey, what the heck?" And it was closed. And I'm standing there, it's like 2:30 in the morning in the cold January rain. I don't even have a jacket. I just have my pants and a shirt. I did have shoes, of course, but basically nothing but that. So from there, I walked to the nearest, it was like a Denny's, a Sherry's. We have Sherry's here too. And I'm just in a state of shock. I don't even have a mind at this point. All I could think of is get out of the rain. And I knew there was a Sherry's about a half a mile away, and I walked to that and just ordered some food. And then I thought, okay, now what do I do? And the only thing I could think of is get to the church. It's the only refuge I could even think of. And so from the restaurant, I called a cab, and I had the cab take me to church, and got there around, I don't know, like 3 a.m., and I stood outside the church in the rain until about 8 a.m., and someone finally showed up. So anyway, that's there on the page. I hear, there was a couple from the church that had a very, very close and keen interest in this matter. They were Kevin and Charlene Hall.
They were on your side.
Yeah, they were definitely on my side. They certainly weren't condemning me. That's definitely not. So they contacted me several days later and said, Carlton, we have to tell you something very bad here. And I go, oh, that's what I need. I need some more bad news. What's the latest round of bad news you have to tell me? He said, we went to your house today, which is like 2 days after this. We come up to the house. The first thing we notice is that every single mini blind of every single window had mini blinds, are fully raised right up to the top. And we walked up to those windows, and that house is completely empty. And clearly, the mini blinds thing was a message. I mean, that was just very clearly a message from the kingdom of hell. Like, we want you to know, and we want everyone to know. We want as many people as we can get to know this, to know that we own this house, and we own you, and your property is now ours. And so when we tell you to bow the knee, next time you'll know, bow the knee. And of course, it wasn't lost on them what the meaning of that was. Of course, I already told you that the contents of the house were declared in the petition. So, again, all these criminal deputies, they knew the wealth that was waiting for them to just take. Interesting. I have as a bullet point here. This is maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking again about 3+ days after the arrest. The Halls, by the way, they knew my truck was gone too, and they gave me, or they lent me their Kevin's old Explorer. He had a newer car, and he just had the Explorer that he just used barely. He says, "Here, let me let you have my Explorer to use until you get this resolved and whatnot." So I was able to get around, and I went right back to the Fred Meyer Starbucks, and I don't even remember if Jeff was there or not. He probably was. But as I'm sitting there, I remember, I mean, you're seeing masses of people coming in and out of it all the time, just like at a Safeway or whatnot. And lo and behold, I see the very deputy that had cuffed me and drove me to the sheriff's office coming out of the Fred Meyer. He's got his shopping cart in front of him, and I mean literally, he is skipping and jumping like a little boy with a smile on his face that literally looked like a guy who had just won the lottery. Just had to throw that in there, And
Did you say anything to him?
oh no, I was inside the thing, and no, he was just kind of going diagonally by me. He wasn't that far away. I was like maybe 30, 40 feet, if that. But I mean, it was.
You?
He didn't see me. And I don't even know if he would recognize me. I mean, I don't know. Who knows what they did? But I mean, I remember he had a certain type of a short goatee, and it was just unmistakably that's the guy. And that's the guy who did this to me and hauled me away and cuffed me. Not that there's anything big in that, but the point is that there's no question that he did get his little lottery payout. And his skipping and jumping like he was an 8-year-old boy was not something contrived. There was something that had him in high step for sure. Okay, so shortly after this, now I'm homeless. And the first thing that happened is there was a brother at the church that immediately found out what had happened. Like I said, when finally someone came into the church in the morning, they let me in and go, "What are you doing here? You look at you're drenched. You've been standing outside here how long?" And then I told them the story, and oh my gosh, get in the room, let's get the heat on you. And they gave me blankets, and they knew this guy I was pretty good friends with. His name's Cedric, and they called him and they said, "You need to come down here and get him. You need to know what's happened." And he came and got me. He said, "Listen, I'm going to have you can stay at my place," which was his mother's place. He was watching his mother's place in town. He said, "You can stay in a spare bedroom there, and And we'll, until we figure out where you're going. Nobody really understood the gravity of what was happening, but at least he put me up at his house for a while, and I was there for about 2 weeks, and then before Jeff Krupp said, hey, listen, I've got a member of the family, this is the huge Krupp Mennonite family. He said one of the members of the family has a big camping trailer, big, super long one. They said they have out on the farm there in Brownsville. They said they'll just let you have it for as many months as you need it. They don't need it for anything anytime soon. And so I thought, okay, well, I knew Cedric wasn't going to be able to let me stay at his mother's place that long anyway. It was just a short-term thing. So I went down to this trailer out on the farm, and I'm living out of it, and did so for, I think, about 4 months. And, well, I can even say it was until like early May. And then eventually I realized, okay, I got to get some kind of an apartment to stay at. And the cheapest thing I could find was there was an apartment complex right next to the little Lynn Benton Community College that actually had these apartment rooms that were basically like half the size of a studio. There was basically nothing more than a place to put a bed, and you needed a bathroom. And so I did that. And by the way, I should also interject this point that the only thing that wasn't taken from me was, in fact, the remains of that checking account, that joint checking account. That was the one thing that they didn't get at. Although my wife could have stolen it, but, in her insanity, that she just thought, okay, I need to issue a cashier's check and send it back to Carlton as my act of defiance. But so I did have some money to.
And you're still working at HP, or?
I'm still working at HP.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I forgot to also say, of course, I'm earning money working there. But unfortunately, well, you'll know soon enough here. But yeah. So this is. I should also say the event of the taking of my home and the arrest, etc. That happened, I believe, is on January 10th of 2008. That was my recollection of the date. So. It wasn't until about, like I said, May of 2008 that I finally got that apartment. So, yeah, and this is now a very, very bad chapter. Every chapter is bad, but there's something exceptionally bad about this. So this whole horror hits me. I mean, I've now had everything I've ever owned taken from me. My wife's been taken from me, and now Caesar came and said, "Well, we're going to take everything from you too, the physical part." And when that happened, when that actual deed took place, I remember the first time, the first Sunday I went to church, I was actually accosted by several elders, literal elders of that church, and I mean, they were just reading me the riot act. Like, how dare you not bow the knee to Caesar? I mean, how dare you defy him? Now keep in mind, I didn't do anything. I didn't defy anybody. There was no order. I take it back. There was one judicial order when. Remember I told you about the sign that got nailed on my house when the 3 days passed and they knew I was still there. A Benton County judge issued a summons and ordered me on her authority, I think it was the same judge, and ordered me to get to her courtroom within the next hour of receipt of this, et cetera, and I just threw that in the trash. I said, who do you think you are? I mean, her lawlessness just only got more and more naked as time passed, but no, of course, I just completely disregarded her order to come see her. And but other than that, that would have been the only act of defiance. And they, by the way, they didn't even know that. They didn't even have any clue about that. They just basically said, you refuse to grant Caesar jurisdiction over your marriage and your family and your home, and therefore that makes you an enemy of God's people. And this is what these two guys were saying. But mind you, it wasn't everybody. Not everybody was saying that.
At Calvary Chapel.
This is a Calvary
And these
Chapel.
are pastors, basically?
No, well, they're elders. They're elders. It wasn't the pastor.
They're like deacons?
Yeah,
Kinda, okay.
deacons, elders, what you want to call them. To his credit, Kevin Hall, who also was a deacon, seeing this, he could see it from, it was at the end of service, as soon as the service ended, these guys bum rushed me and did this. And I mean, I think I even started crying, at this point. I mean, I'm in such shock. And Kevin came running over and he said, get away from him. I mean, it's almost as if he knew that their spiritual state was so degraded that they would do that. And he knew enough to say, beat it, get away from him now. And so, I mean, he came and made that come to an end. But bottom line was is that those are just the two I know, but there were plenty in that church that saw that, basically felt the same thing, in other words. And it makes sense. I mean, look, we teach here that we understand marriage, divorce, and remarriage is a farce, okay? But if you believe it's not, and you believe it's right and just and good to do that, then those people that do that, they see somebody like me do what I do. Believe me, I'm their worst enemy, because there can only be one of us right in that action. Either they were right or I was, or vice versa. One of us is wrong, put it that way. And so it didn't take me long to figure this out, that realize, okay, this is just what's going on here. They're seething with anger that they're finally somebody stood up and said, no, Caesar has no jurisdiction over me and my marriage whatsoever, absent a genuine cause, of which there was none, not to mention this evil, which there was nothing provided for in law for them to do at all. So, let me just see what more I've got here.
I think it's about time to wrap it up.
Are we really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just make sure I get this last
Yeah.
one here. Yeah, okay, so I just want to make sure that there were some at Calvary Chapel that did know what was going on and understood that even though it was kind of abstract to them, they could see that what I'd done was honorable and right and scripturally correct. That's the most important thing. They said, wait a minute, this is right. This is what you're supposed to do. Especially, and by the way, the point being is especially since so many of these people knew that this wasn't a bad marriage, whatever you want to call a bad marriage. They knew there had no elements of that whatsoever. They knew this demonic Fatima. They had started figuring that part out. They understood the nature. They got enough facts at that point to realize, wait a minute, no, this is nothing of the kind in terms of a traditional, whatever you call it, a bad marriage. And they could see that it was not only, there was no authority for any court to whatsoever do what they did to me, but it was that I was honor and scripturally bound to do exactly what I did in defending what I could with what I had in terms of power to stand up against that evil. And it was also the only message I could send my wife. I mean, it literally was the only communication I could send was, no, I'm not interested in entering into jurisdiction, and I'm not going into the evil realm that you've gone into. So, okay, so should we stop there? Is that time?
It's about, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sorry we didn't get more.
No, it was good. It was good.
Unfortunately, I never know how long each bullet point goes.
Yeah.
So who got the house? Who got all the belongings? Did they ever
Well, I'm
give that
absolutely
to
convinced.
her?
I'm absolutely convinced. Whoa, what happened? Ouch.
Yeah, it's cool.
He's falling out of his chair. This is so shocking. It's knocking him out of his
Always
chair.
playing around.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she didn't take none of the money that she sent you back from the account?
No,
None of
no,
it? She just sent it all
Was
back?
that the only account you guys had, or you got
Yeah, that
more
was it.
savings?
No, that was it.
That was it?
That was it.
So she left you all the cash but took
Well,
all
I didn't. I haven't given you all the. Let me turn this off here. But I haven't given you every single much about the
Right, yeah.